There are people who you will hear from that know a lot more about climate change than I do, and particularly as it relates to the technical aspects of insurance modeling and insurance underwriting. What I want to do today is explain to you how, through the support for IBHS, the insurance industry is trying to both do research and educate the public and policymakers about why this makes a difference and what they can do about it with respect to what we would now call climate change mitigation and climate change adaptation. And at one point I thought we were about mitigation, and then I thought we were about adaptation, and now I realize we are about both. IBHS, we are fully insurance industry supported. We are a multi-peril organization. And what I think is interesting is that when we talk about our work on climate change, it isn't just about hurricane risk. It really is about the multitude of perils that we're involved in, both from a mitigation and an adaptation perspective. We look at this thing called mitigation from a holistic perspective. Land use planning: where do you build, how do you retrofit, how do you maintain, how do you prepare, how do you respond, and how do you start that cycle over better, we hope, and more smartly the second time. I think the worst thing that we see is the repetitive loss in certain communities, and that's certainly something that we're trying to educate people about. A key part of our messaging in a world that cares more about climate change and environment than they do about insurance and words like mitigation is that by land use planning, structural mitigation, all the things I've talked about, we can have a positive effect on the environment. And that's a way to get a little bit more positive buzz about what we're doing. Buildings that aren't destroyed are less likely to wind up in landfills. And the numbers from Cedar Rapids, which one could say, well, that was a flooding incident related to the environment, that was astonishing, a year's worth of trash in a single day. But Haiti, an earthquake is the same thing. So by mitigating against an earthquake, you can have the same very positive effect when it comes to what winds up in a landfill. CO2 and other greenhouse gas effects of fire, I guess I will leave that to the FM Global people who have done an excellent study to demonstrate how mitigating against fire is also good for the environment by avoiding both the environmental degradation that comes from putting out a fire and, again, the debris. Wildfire can lead to landslides, again, the loss of vegetation, which is so important from a CO2 perspective. Floodplain management, more and more we're in meetings with people who understand the importance of having a natural floodplain both to protect the structures and also to protect the environment. And finally, it takes a lot of carbon to put a lot of waste in the landfills, but also the carbon footprint of community reconstruction is really unnecessary if the community doesn't get destroyed to begin with. This is something just to add one little insurance slide, but I'm going to really move on. But when Rowan was talking about the fat tails, this is a slide that was done by a professor at the University of Pennsylvania along with someone from RMS that does demonstrate how structural mitigation, land use planning can basically, that 200-year event becomes a less frequent event. At the same level of loss, it is less frequent, and I'm really fascinated by the fact that you mentioned capital, because that's something we'd like to work on, is sort of how do you circle that back into capital needs, and that gets to the availability and affordability of insurance. When we talk, the other part of what we do, the climate change community calls land use planning, structural mitigation, they call that adaptation. We still call it mitigation, except when we're in a climate change meeting, and then we call it adaptation. It's about building for the place where you are. We've got hurricane advice. We've got fire advice. We've got water advice. Elevation is another huge thing when it comes to both storm surge as well as riverine flooding. In addition to building codes, we have a program called Fortified for Safer Living. It encourages homeowners and soon-to-be business owners to go beyond building codes and build stronger structures. And when Hurricane Ike was going toward Texas, we realized that we had 13 houses that were built to our fortified standards that were in the Bolivar Peninsula, and that would make a great laboratory. And then we said, oh my God, we have 13 structures that are built to our fortified standards, and the wind is going to come. What will happen to those? And they did pretty well. 10 out of 13 survived. The 3 that didn't were hit by debris from non-fortified buildings, and that's actually something we found already in a few short weeks at our new laboratory, that the debris from non-fortified buildings can be as dangerous as the wind itself. But the problem that we see here is that this is no longer a community. This is 10 homes that are left standing, and while you could get into them and, you know, with a generator you could live just fine, all your neighbors are gone. So we are trying to promote community resilience as part of our message, that everybody should be mitigating, not just the people who understand the importance of elevation in this instance. Similarly, on the wildfire, which is an issue that relates to climate change, we're trying to promote the concept of fire adaptive communities. We work a lot with the fire services on that. And we did a study after Witch Creek that showed how embers that float from one place to another really can be braked with the right type of siting and landscaping and so forth. So there are lots of perils where this comes into effect, and with climate change, as I'm sure the other speakers will talk about, that each of these will become more and more important. As far as the green building issue is concerned and LEED, one of the things we are both interested and a little bit distressed about is that there is to some extent the potential for greater mitigation, greater resistance with respect to environmental buildings, such as stronger windows that are energy resistant, may also be wind resistant, but there are also some aspects of LEED that could lead to higher losses, like a green roof in a wildfire area, or even in a green roof in a wind-prone area. Those are the things that can become missiles. And so we're just starting a dialogue with the Green Building Council to try to add more sustainability into the, more resilience into the sustainability. But the real fun stuff is with respect to our new research center. And we do think this is going to be a game changer, both with respect to engineering research, with respect to the use to which insurance companies can make in terms of their better modeling, better understanding the data, and better understanding how mitigation can work its way into catastrophe models, and ultimately the public, as you'll see in just a minute. These are just a couple of pictures. The lab is located in Chester County, South Carolina, which is about an hour south of the Charlotte airport, so it is fairly easily accessible for the public policymakers and technicians that we want to come visit, but also sort of remote enough that it's not going to be like the World Bank that, you know, every so often has its protesters outside. You'd have a hard time finding us if you didn't know us. We will be dealing with wind, eventually hail, wildfire, and water. So again, these are lots of perils that do have a climate change impact in terms of the frequency of more severe storms. And I am going to show you some video very shortly, but I want to call your attention to Vimeo, where we are posting a lot of our videos. And if you go into this Vimeo website, it's just like video with an M, and you just search for IBHS, you'll get to sort of on your desktop computer, or we hope to share with other people, some of the terrific video that we have. But before, I want to show you two things, and now I think I need to escape this. Is that right? Escape. I'm going to first I'm going to take you through a virtual tour of the lab. I should mention that FM Global was a consultant to us on this lab. It is built to FM Global standards, and including on the fire protection side, which is very important since we're going to be simulating fires at the lab. And we're too small to be an FM Global policyholder, but Travelers is our insurer, and they were recently in for a loss control visit with us, the first one since we finished, and they had no recommendations. So obviously we practiced what we preached in terms of mitigation. This is a fly-through, I hope. Okay. X that. Okay, I'm taking you in the front door. This is 105 fans that can basically have the wind power of a Category 3 storm. If we get a little more money, we may be able to go up for 4. And you're going through a fan and seeing a specimen on our turntable, which is designed so that we can look at 4 different elevations of a home in a single test. There's an observation area. 80 people can come and visit us, or a few more, but still not breaking the fire code. And then the debris goes out and into a nearby field, and it's really amazing how far it really goes. But we've done, I think now, 4 sets of just really demonstration projects. And the next thing I just want to show you in terms of how we can really change public attitudes in terms of the importance of mitigation to insurance as well as to the environment is by showing you this Today Show clip. We actually had someone, they came down the day that we opened to the public.
The world's biggest insurance companies are opening a giant lab today where they can recreate destructive storms. The goal is to learn how to build better homes. We've got NBC's Tom Costello in Richburg, South Carolina with an exclusive behind-the-scenes look. Tom, good morning. Sounds pretty cool.
Good morning. Pretty cool place. Al should be here. We are in a 6-story test chamber here, and behind me, 2 3-bedroom homes that are built to be modeled exactly on homes in the Midwest. We're going to show you what happens when they turned on the wind and the rain. From hurricanes to tornadoes, floods to wildfires, natural disasters caused some $26 billion in property damage last year alone and took an even greater human toll. Now, after years of crash testing cars to force automakers to improve safety, the biggest insurance companies in the world are taking aim at the construction industry with a massive new lab built to recreate Mother Nature's fury, starting with wind and rain. Watch the home on the left, a replica of a home built to code in Bloomington, Illinois. It collapses in 100-mile-per-hour winds, while the home on the right remains standing, the same floor plan but reinforced. One key difference, the front door on the right opens out. The front door on the left opens in.
Once that door blew in, the house was pressurized and basically started to explode and then sort of collapsed backwards and became really just a pile of debris. It's no longer somebody's home.
But was it a fluke? To find out, they built another home, then prepared to turn on the massive wall of wind. 105 fans, each one pumping out 300 horsepower with a combined output of 140 miles per hour. That's the equivalent of a Category 3 storm. This time, the house starts coming apart in 95-mile-per-hour winds.
A lot of siding, we lost soffit material, we lost flashing from around the edge.
Tim Reinhold is the chief wind engineer. The siding on this house just literally ripped free. Why is that?
It's a product that's really not rated for high winds, and for a modest additional cost, you could go to a product that is rated for high winds.
For just $3,000 more, the reinforced house stood still, with straps that hold the roof and walls together, stronger nails, thicker decking, better shingles and siding, and a front door that opens out, not in.
If people aren't killed, if people aren't injured, if their homes aren't destroyed, if their communities survive, if the business remains in operation, everybody wins.
That's the goal here, to take what they've learned here and turn it into, hopefully, better construction and suggestions for construction companies across the country, for homes and businesses. Here is the roof that blew off that first home. Eventually, they are going to be testing hail and even wildfires. And we'll be back for that, too, we hope. And back to you.
I think they probably will invite you back. Tom Costello, thank you so much.
You know, and Tom, amazing. If you just stand by for a second, Tom, we've asked the people to turn those fans on right now while you're there.
You know who's here? Jim Cantori is here. So if he's around, there's got to be a disaster lurking.
Oh, get out of the way, though,
Full
Tom.
facility. You'd love it, Tom.
I know, that's spectacular. And look, they've been building homes to code for hurricanes down along the southeastern Atlantic coast. So really, this is really long overdue.
Yeah, you'd think that we would have thought about doing this earlier because it makes so much sense. I mean, the door going out rather than going in is a takeaway right now.
Pressurization is a big deal. It's that we see that all the time in hurricanes and tornadoes.
Yeah, that's wild stuff.
All right.
All right.
Well, thank you very much.